Satnam, Yogis, Yoginis, hello, welcome. Welcome, Infinite Stories. Good to see you here. Good to see everybody. 7 steps to happiness. This will be a nice change of airs compared to the last video we had on the 7 steps to hell. Well, the last live stream was on basic needs, but before that we did on this course the 7 steps to hell, and it's a difficult topic, talking about these 7 ways in which we trap ourselves into personal hell on earth. This is not about something that happens after death. It's something that happens while we are here, while we are alive. Indeed, most of us live some form of hell or another in our lives. We create the conditions that trapped us in these mind games that we have been exploring in this course. And so it was useful to identify the different steps that were taking us there. And now we will see, today we will talk about what do we need to do to change that, to get out of that jail, that imprisonment, and to go towards happiness. We will say, sometimes we call this topic 7 steps to heaven, sometimes we call it 7 steps to happiness. And me being a yogi and seeing how most of the people who come to the world of yoga, they come looking for happiness, then this is a very important topic. Now, we have been doing a number of topics which were kind of sensitive in nature, talking about the mind games, the 7 sins, the 7 steps to hell. And we haven't really gone deep into numbers, but I promise this will change very soon. We're still having to talk about a few more topics on the mind. They're going to be softer topics, not as heavy as these last ones, but interesting just as well. And as soon as we go down into number 5, which will be very soon, then we will start going deeper into numbers. But for the moment, let me just review the thing that we talked the last day was these 7 steps to hell. So let's just very quickly, we start from a expecting passive position and then thinking that we know better how the world should be, and we create the world, we create things as we want. This is when we define the rules of the game, what we want to do to get to some sort of pleasure, and try to control the circumstances and what we can do around those circumstances to get that pleasure. Then we invest our energy and our effort and our time and our money into getting that because we think we're going to be happy at the end. And then there's going to be consequences. We win or we lose. And then there's the karma, because we are creating actions and that has a consequence. The drama of the situation, and especially if it goes wrong, and the trauma that it can create. And then we want some compensation for either having gone wrong and we being on the short end of the stick, or if we win and we don't get the happiness that we were waiting for, then try to compensate in some way and then justify saying that we were right all along the way we were doing it, right? This is like the seal on the coffin, the lock that was closing the jail, and we are locked with our mind games. Let's remember these mind games that we have been exploring not so far away. You remember? Who has the key? Well, we locked ourselves into this personal jail, this personal hell. Satnam Infinity, hello, good to see you here. We have again infinity and infinite stories together. So, there we are. We are in hell. Welcome. So what do we do now? Well, let's talk about this. When we are in hell, we are in our own prison. And the other video we were talking about, we can identify when we are here because of these qualities of either feeling like a victim, or there's the cynicism and skepticism and criticism for others and for our lives and for everything that happens. And we are justifying and giving excuses of why we do what we do, why we are trapped where we are. Maybe because of what happened to me, and poor me, little me, where I am, or whatever the situation is. So if we identify that we are justifying ourselves in some way, we are giving excuses in some way, or giving explanations that are kind of excuses, and we are in this cynicism, skepticism, these should all be signs that we are in some form of hell and we have created it, and pay attention to what did we do to create that so that we can get out of that. All right, now that we have identified this, when we realize that, we realize we want to get out. By the way, we may realize it through the different mind games also, okay? This is the jail, so if we realize we are feeling guilty or the victim, or we are feeling that we are, this is the excusing and the justifying that I was talking about, but there can be many other mind games: blame, name, shame, and complain, seeking compensation. You will identify some of these ones, like there is a certain order to those, particularly these three is very important: I'm not capable, I'm not allowed, I don't deserve. These are all part of the jail. So when we detect this, I want to get out. This has to be the first step, like realizing, obviously, consciousness always has to be the first step. And first, just by being aware that we are there, that's already creating a big change. This is like the Schrödinger's cat, in this when we talk about quantum theory and whether when you observe the cat, are you killing the cat or not? This kind of thing. When you apply consciousness to something, the state of that thing is already changing. Just by observing it, it's going to be changing. So, and that's a good thing. When we are trapped in the hell, just becoming aware and saying, I'm trapped in these mind games, that's already setting up the right fertile ground, let's say, to plant new seeds of possibilities. So this is the idea. First of all, we become aware, I'm in a personal hell. How do I get out of that? All right, this is the initial point. Well, when you are in a jail, we are trapped in a cell, which, even the very word cell is very similar to hell, yeah? Well, why not turn that cell into a monastic cell? Like in a convent would have, or like a monastery, the monks would have a cell where you can close yourself and you would go into silence and meditate. And this, by the way, is answering you infinite stories. You were asking about guilt, how to get out of guilt. This video is going to help as well with that. I think you asked me some other time. So this is about how to get out of our jail. If our jail is made of guilt or made of shame or made of feeling the victim of something, then this is how we can get out of that. So we go into ourselves, we go into our silence, we go into this monastic cell of isolation for a moment. And for a moment we realize that, we are all trapped in some personal hell or another. We are all experiencing that. Looking around, unless you're looking at a Buddha, and those are very hard to find. So if you have a Buddha, just sit next to them and just stay there, right? And just learn from them, then come back to the channel and write what they say, if they say something. But unless you are next to a Buddha, everybody has their own kind of hell in some way or another. So, realizing that there is nothing more universal than our pain and our solitude, that we are all in our own cells. Because when we are in there, we feel like we are alone and we are separate from everybody in the world. But when you realize that everybody is in their own cell, that's something that you have in common with everybody. So the moment that you realize of the universality of this experience, that's already connecting you to everybody else, and that's getting you out of the solitude already, just by noticing that everybody feels alone. How interesting, eh? So the very feeling of loneliness and separation is the very thing that connects all of us. So that's a very interesting thing. Now, why do I put this on the very first moment as we become conscious that we are trapped in a hell? We do this because when we are trapped in a personal hell, everything is very personal. And when we need to get out of the personal, it's often useful to go into the impersonal. I found this in consultation many times useful, but also in teacher trainings and other contexts. When somebody is suffering, when somebody is deep in their pain, making them aware of somebody else's pain or somebody else's suffering or something else that's happening outside their personal experience is useful to get out of that hole that we trap ourselves. So it's like you widen your view. Yeah? And it's not like knowing that others suffer doesn't necessarily remove the pain. But remember, pain and suffering is not the same. But if I feel my pain and I feel your pain and I feel somebody else's pain, I can connect them and realize that there is a common pain to all of us. Common pain, that word, as compassion. Common, pathos. Pathos is the Greek for pain. So now we are in a feeling of compassion, let's say, which starts with ourselves. Compassion is not only to the outside, it's also towards ourselves. So being compassionate for ourselves, not pity, okay? Not looking for sympathy, but compassionate for our situation. But at the same time, feeling what the others are feeling and being able to connect to them. So that's compassionate towards the others at the same time. So message coming through. I think there are levels of hell. Some people's perceived hell might be someone's perceived happiness. So it's about perception, perhaps. Yes, yeah, that's a good point. And of course, it's not the same somebody who is in a very dark place, ready to do something nasty to themselves, than somebody who is, who has a rough year, let's say, who has some personal struggle. But we all have our own personal hell, like you say, so we can all improve our lives in one way or another. So yeah, my personal hell, maybe another one will perceive it like that's wonderful for them. They wish they would have my personal hell, but the way I live it is I want to get out of this, right? As soon as we perceive these mind games that trouble us, then we can all aspire to getting out of that. Yeah, but true, yeah, perception is going to have an influence as well. Perception is also another thing which is going to make pain become suffering or not. So how do you perceive what's happening? How do you accept that? Remember in the video for forgiveness, we talked about recognizing, accepting, and agreeing. So how you perceive pain, and if you can accept the situation that is happening, you can not necessarily release the pain, but you stop suffering because of that. And we experience this in yoga a lot, because when we are doing a yoga class, we put ourselves through certain postures which can be painful sometimes, right? Like this kind of exercises where the hands are up and we're 11 minutes like that. Now that's a painful posture. Why would we do this? Well, you don't have to suffer through that. You can hold the posture and learn that you can let go of the suffering and just appreciate and accept what is coming. And you know that when you're going to lower the arms, you're going to be much better. You're going to feel much better. But you have to cross through that. Infinity says, pain is physical and inevitable. Suffering is mental, hence it's optional. Yes, that's right. But that's the thing. How do we make it optional? How can we go beyond that suffering? So that's part of the key. So first of all, we realize that there is this personal hell that we created. Second, we notice that we have all done that. We are sharing this experience with all humanity. We are all in our own prisons. And then we commit to changing something about that. We want to change something. That's something that we are going to commit to, changing whatever circumstances are around this, and our attitude in the circumstances, including in our attitude, the perception, how we are going to perceive whatever is happening. So that commitment, that is the very first step towards heaven. So let me start a new drawing here. Let's make it, I'm going to keep this one on top so I make it relatively similar. 7 steps to heaven. And we're going to do 7 bubbles. 7 steps. And the very first step is that commitment that we just mentioned. Commitment. Now, this commitment requires consciousness, I mentioned, yeah? It has to. Without consciousness, there's no commitment. Without consciousness, it's just things are happening to us. So there has to be consciousness for this commitment to happen. When we say that things are happening to us, what we are talking is karma. So everything that happens in life is karma, in a way. If a car almost hits us, that's karma. If they offer us a new job, that's karma. Everything that is happening is karma. However, we can free ourselves of that karma that is coming, and or we can perpetuate it. If we react, and we react in the worst possible way particularly, we are perpetuating the karma, so the karma has to come back again and again. But there is a difference between fate and destiny. When we call fate, is something that is happening to us and we are the victims of our karma. We are experiencing the karma that is happening to us. We are just living the life that is given to us. Let's say Fernando. Hello, Fernando Satnam. Good to see you. Lots of people that have had NDA, near-death experiences, yes, come back speaking of and describing a realm of pain and suffering where souls who have led malignant or indulgent lives remain, the purgatory. Yes, that's true. And we may talk about death some other day. That's a very important topic, but I'm kind of keen on leaving it for number 8. When we get to number 8, we will have more language to speak about death in a more informed way. Now, that's very far away from now. We are still in the number 7. We have to go down to the 1 and start. But indeed, what you are saying is true. It's also true that most people who have a near-death experience, they actually had a wonderful experience, which is nice. I think there was this guy, I don't remember his name, he gave a TED talk talking about interviewing probably over 1,000 people who had NDEs. And the majority of them were describing a wonderful experience where there was this love and freedom and lightness and wellness, and many of them just didn't want to come back. Somehow they are told that they have to come back, that their role in this world isn't finished, so they have to go back. But somehow part of them is like, oh my God, it's so well here, I don't want to go back. So that's an interesting thing as well, that the majority of people experience that, even if they may perceive that there is another realm for the pain and the suffering. But most of them describe, the majority of them describe that wonderful experience. And indeed, that's going to have a tremendous impact on life. Yes, most people refer to wonderful experiences. You're right. Yeah, good to be back here. Yeah, good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. So, having had that vision that there is something after death, that we can have a clear perception of that, and there is then no doubt that death is not the end, that changes completely our perspective on life. That changes completely the way we're going to live things. I remember in one of these examples that this person was giving in the TED Talk, he said that after coming back to life, he made a decision to himself. He was like, I never ever want to argue with my wife again, because nothing would be worth arguing about compared to what we're expecting at the end of the path. So there's nothing here that I may want to get angry about, when knowing that that's so irrelevant compared to the final destiny. No, it has changed my life indeed. Oh, so have you gone through that experience? Have you gone through NDE? And if you have, Fernando, can you tell us, what did you learn from that? How did that make you change your perspective to the world, and maybe Did it make you change the way you live life so that you are not so much in this personal hell of us, right? Did it help in some way? Because that's one of the things that you can learn from these kind of experiences. I remember once I was teaching a class. Hold on a second. Does it depend on the chakras they left through? They left through. Like living from higher chakras led to heavenly realms and lower chakras to hellish lokas. No, not necessarily infinity. Actually, most of us, the soul should live through the crown, but even after living through the crown, you have to go through the electromagnetic field and the astral realms before you can even go to the ethers beyond. Now, it's a very complex topic. Today would not make sense to go into that because it will require a few hours to explain in detail. We will do that at some point, but the essence in general, it should always go through the crown. And this is why, when we died, they would put 2 coins on the eyes. They would use this myth. You have to pay 2 coins to the boatman to cross to Hades, right? The Greek myth of the underworld. But actually, it's just so that the eyes don't open, because the eyes are the senses. The senses are the main way that we interact with the world. So our energy goes out through the eyes. So we want to conserve the energy for the path we have to go in death, and therefore closing the eyes with the coins was a way to conserve that energy. But even after going through the crown, we still have to cross through these different states of, the astral realms to reach something higher. So, and in the astral realms, you can end up in a hell after earth, right? But we are not talking about that way. We're talking about the hell on earth right now. But yeah, Fernando says, not me, but reading and talking to people who have been through, including my mom. Yes, interesting. Yeah. Did your mom learn something from the experience that she could share in some way? I find it always very interesting talking to people who have gone through this near-death experience or shared death experiences. They always have some learning from that. But yeah, we are talking about hell on earth, right? Not beyond death. So let's go back to this idea. Now, commitment, remember? Commitment. Now, okay, commitment to what exactly? Because not any kind of commitment is going to take me to heaven, right? Remember that when we were playing the 7 steps to hell, one of the things is we were creating rules of the game, and we had a theory of happiness, which is more pleasure than happiness, but okay. And we were saying examples like, if I could only win $1 million, if I could only be leader of my company, the CEO of my company, if I could only win the race, I would be happy. So you create some sort of hypothesis of what is happening, what is happiness, and hopefully by the end reach to that happiness. But then, this is where the proofs to the hypothesis come. But this is like a commitment as well. I commit myself to being the CEO of my company. And by doing that commitment, you are going to do whatever it takes. Maybe even, lose your family along the way. But if you get to be CEO, maybe you find happiness, then you get there and you realize you don't. But that was some form of commitment. So just commitment is not enough. We have to say commitment to what? And here is where we say, well, commitment to Dharma. I was mentioning how fate is when we live life in a way in which things happen to us, but destiny is when we choose which direction we are moving. So let's put it like this. We are an acorn, and we can be a wonderful oak tree, beautiful oak tree. But we are fighting with the acorn, and we want to be an apple tree. and we can fight and fight and fight and fight against life. And everything, every step along the way in life, it will feel like a battle, and everything is karma, and we are suffering because we are trying to be an apple tree and it's just not working. Or we can accept that we are an acorn and our destiny is to become an acorn tree, and by choosing that, we can choose the best acorn tree that I can be. Satnam John, hello, welcome. Welcome to the stream. I haven't seen you in a while as well. It's good to see you here. So we are talking about the 7 steps to happiness. Good to see you. So the moment that we choose to align ourselves with our destiny, a number of possibilities open up. Even, there's different kinds of oak trees that you can be, and you can choose the one that is like the highest for you, let's say, whatever it means, whatever that means to you, yeah? But sometimes we say everything is already written, so this is like saying everything is karma, but at the same time, we can change one tiny little 1% of what's happening. And then at the same time, we know that one little change, this is like chaos theory, a butterfly moving the wings here and a tornado happens in Tokyo. So you can change 1%, and that has an absolute impact on your destiny and everything that happens to you. So I don't know why it was coming to my mind now, the movie of Harry Potter. I don't know why it was coming to me, but I was seeing this. I remember seeing the movie, the first one, right? And I constantly felt like things were happening to him. Like he is given money, he is given the wealth and the possibility to go to Hogwarts, and then he is kind of, these 2 friends come and join him, and then he is given this invisibility cloak. I don't even remember if that's the first movie or not, but things are happening to him. And even though it looks like a wonderful, like, self-realization story and finding his own magic, I felt like, that's given to him. There's no big efforts for him to get to where he has to get to. So I felt it a little bit lacking, even though I enjoyed the books, reading them very much. But particularly the first movie, it felt like he wasn't doing enough. Not later on, but the first one. So we are the heroes of our own stories. If anybody has read about, the hero of 1,000 masks, or, the cosmic myth, we are the heroes of our own stories. And there's a journey to make. There's some suffering to go through. There's some pain to go through. But we can choose our destiny in a way. And yet, when we get to the end, and we look back in the garden of destiny, right? And we look back, we will realize there was only one path to get to where we were. Right now, if we look back to our life, we will realize that everything in our life had to happen exactly in that way for me to be here where I am right now. And everything was incredibly intelligently put together for me to be to where I am, even the painful things, which is one of those things, if you remember on the video on forgiveness, recognize, accept, and agree, this is one of the things that helps you to agree that whatever happened had to happen. So how I take this? There is a God. I'm going to talk about God a little bit. What does God mean? Everybody has to find their own relationship to the divine. To me, God is this intelligent force guiding everything. There is this matrix behind reality. There is some lines which point the way things could be to live in a harmonious way. And if we fight against these lines, then we are in a disharmony and life is a struggle. And when we listen to the order of these lines, this is what's called the hukam, the divine command, divine will. When we listen to the hukam, when we pay attention, this is if you read Japji Sahib, by Guru Nanak, the first prayer from the Sikh prayers is saying, look, listen. It's a listen, because there is a divine will. There is a command that if you follow it, you're going to be in harmony. and you are taking the reins of your life. You're not driving your horse backwards anymore. You're moving towards your destiny. You're holding the reins, and you are actively, right? Not passively, actively being the agent of change in your life and being the hero of your life. So listen to the command and then choose. Now it's funny because in a way what this is telling us is that when you pay attention and you listen, Sunie, and then you hear and you understand intuitively, it generally comes intuitively. You perceive this is the way to do things. If I follow this path, I'm in harmony with the universe. And then you can choose to follow it or not, right? First you listen, you hear it. Now you can obey or not. Obey is very important. Sunie manie. Yeah, manie. Now, if we don't obey, then we're going to be in a fight with the divine order, with this harmony of the universe. Now, personally, I was very much a skeptic and an atheist and all that. I was right here, right? In the skepticism and the cynicism. When I was in the university, I would dress all in black. Oh, my throat doesn't even want to talk about that. Let me drink some water. I was dressed all in black. I would shave my face and almost my head, and I was in a pretty dark spot. But I had some proofs. I had some synchronicities that proved to me that we are being listened to, that this intelligent force that guides the universe, if you talk to it, it's listening. And if you listen to it, it's speaking. This is prayer and meditation. This is the combination of both. And when we are listening to all these synchronicities, there is beyond what statistical probabilities say that something could happen in a coincidence way, it's real. Oh, I'm just saying this, and I noticed the coincidence message right there. I don't even know that you were talking about coincidences. Coincidence, talking about this, I've been away for 6 weeks as my father passed away. Oh dear. Sorry to hear that, John. So we were just talking about death and the journey beyond. Yes, today is it's a date with these things. Yeah, one of my best friends in Spain, his father died right last week. So there's this energy around right now. Infinity is asking how to differentiate between a divine call and self-deception coming from ego. Ooh, yes, infinity, yes. So I mentioned something about this on the last video. When we are walking towards hell, hell is a fiery place, is flames, is light. Flames produce light. And when you're walking down towards hell, sometimes you think you're walking towards the light, like the light of heaven. And yet you are going to self-deception coming from ego. That's why I was trying to do the thumbnail. Sometimes I complicate myself too much doing the thumbnails for these videos. But I was doing the thumbnail for the last week video, and I was like choosing the colors, and I chose them to go from red to yellow. Even though we were looking at it like the 7 chakras, I just felt like it was like down to the 3rd chakra in some way, because the yellow is the flames of the fire, and hell is kind of like fire, so I did it in that way. And the second thumbnail I will prepare for this week will go towards a different kind of yellow. It will be the golden light of the spiritual happiness. So I'm gonna do that one. I'm working on that one. So somehow preparing the thumbnails is like a meditation for these topics. But so yes, how do we differentiate? Good question. Well, to me, the answer is if you have been listening to what you do and what you say in that following that divine call, but supposed to be divine call, if you are sincere with yourself, you may identify mind games. If in your going towards that divine call, you hear these mind games justifying, illusion, rescuing, if you try to rescue anyone, if you are doing what you are doing because you are trying to rescue anyone, sorry, but that's a mind game, and therefore that's coming from the ego in the form of self-deception. So I would argue that you only know by listening very attentively also to what you are saying and what you are doing. And be sincere, like, am I trying to justify myself or compensate for something I have done in my life or whatever? If it comes from there, that's the ego. And sometimes we are not able to differentiate it, and that's why we need a teacher, right? A teacher is there so that when we are in the darkness, they can clearly see when we are going towards the self-deception or going towards the divine call. Listen to the heart, not the head. Yes, that's part of it. That's part of it. Though the heart can be numb, the heart can be closed, the heart can be in pain, the heart can be in suffering, the heart can be in doubt because it doesn't know what it's feeling out of the numbers and all that. The heart can be stabbed by betrayal and be in pain through that stabbing in the back. So the heart is not automatic. Listen to the heart and we know what we have to do. There has to be a process of tuning into it and healing it as well. Heal a broken heart and listen to it, be sensitive enough, and so on. And also the head is not useless. The head, we shouldn't discard the head. The head is very important to be able to elaborate why we are doing things and to help us move forward. So I think, when I did the mind course, I was quite clear. The objective is not to kill the mind. It's to make mind our servant. Mind can be useful. It's just we have never learned that we have to clean the subconscious and train the positive mind and all that. So that's why that was my idea of why I did that course. So that was important as well, yeah. Ideally, the mind is clear and we can listen to the heart and the mind can serve us to walk the path of the heart. But that's not always direct, yeah. I've just started heart math and it works pretty good. I don't know what that is. Heart math. Maybe you can tell us what it is. I'm not sure what that is. Heart math, like mathematics. All right. So there is a possible destiny. And when I move in harmony with the world around me, listening to God's command, the hukam, when I move in that direction towards that destiny, then everything is easier. Even the things that are painful, they are easier to cross through because you have a direction and you know where you're going. This is like when we say, I would rather be in the middle of the storm, but have clear vision of the direction I'm going with my ship, with my boat, and have to cross through the storm, than being in very placid waters and not knowing where to go. Right? If you are in the middle of a storm, but you know where you are going, I have a purpose, right? And so I can just, get a grip and, call my will and go for the purpose. So that's why we say that. So that's the commitment. I hear in my heart that there is a possible destiny, better, higher, nicer than where I am right now, in the hell that I am right now. And I commit to go there. I spent a long time just on this step. And the reason for that is because in the 7 steps to hell, we say the only step you have to give is the commitment. Because this step will bring this one brings this one, this one brings this one, this one brings this one. They all come in a succession They are a consequence of this one. But you have to give this one and you have to sustain it. So this is the most important step. That's why I'm taking a bit long time to go over that one. HeartMath products, tools and techniques are based on over 30 years of scientific research conducted at the HeartMath Institute. Okay. I haven't heard of that, but I'm glad it's working for you. Good. Yeah, I like scientific research. I like when science proves and explains some of the things that we explore in yoga. It's always nice to find an approach that is balanced between the East and the West. That's my approach always, try to find the balance between both. So if you have scientific research behind any technique that you are applying, then that's always good. All right. So, commitment. Commitment has to start with committing to what we have, committing to the things that as they are. So in a way we have to say, commit to what is. There's one saying we say in Karam Kriya, there is no injustice, all just is. There is no injustice, all just is. Things are as they are. And so this commitment, this is listening to the hukam. I was mentioning this divine order, divine will, harmony of the universe, and then following it and finding what can I commit to? Where is my start going to be? How am I going to change? Do a change that is going to be significant enough in many ways. So let me give an example. Everything that we do in life can be like archetypical in some way. For example, when I'm taking the shower in the morning, taking a cold shower, I'm saying to myself, I'm taking the reins of my life. I'm waking up to life. I am taking responsibility for my life. I am committed to being awake. This is the kind of things that I say to myself, even out loud in the shower, because, cold shower can be pretty shocking in the morning. But why do we do this? Because that's what we want. We want to remove the shock of life outside by creating consciously wanting to go into there. So rather than wait for life to shock me, I shock myself consciously by doing something that is actually really healthy for me. Really healthy, right? Cold showers are really healthy. If you haven't looked into that, you can research a little bit. By consciously going into that, and that's a commitment. It takes an incredible level of commitment to wake up from nice, cozy, warm bed, maybe at an ungodly hour. Sorry for the word ungodly hour, but go up there and go into the cold shower. That kind of crazy. Maybe someday I will explain how to do the whole process, so it's not like, in the right way. But adopting that kind of lifestyle, that's such a commitment that you are telling to yourself, I am taking responsibility for my life. I am a mature man, and I'm going to choose to do this thing as a commitment to my life. I'm waking up, right? That's commitment. And when you do that, you are sending a signal to the universe, and more importantly to yourself and to your mind, saying, I am not going to be a prisoner to the comfort of staying in bed, and I'm going to take away the coldness of life consciously by finding the warmth within. Because, when you're taking a cold shower, the body has to fight with the cold, and it produces its own heat, and your whole body heats up, and your skin turns red, and you become really warm. The first hours in the morning, you are very, very, very warm. So it's by exposing yourself to cold therapy, you are committing to not to take just life what they give you, but actually choosing the difficult path. Because actually, John says, I do it also every day at the sea when I can. Oh, that's wonderful, wonderful, John. And I was just going to say something about you who lost your father recently. The path towards the ethers, we were talking about how the astral realms can be tricky to cross, to traverse. And that's where the heaven and the hell are beyond this life. And the crossing of that is like walking a very narrow path up a cold mountain to the mountain top. And it's a lonely path, and it's a narrow path, it's a cold path. So the cold shower in the morning is like a little training to dying in some ways. Because, look, this is probably the only guarantee we have in life, that someday we're going to die. And so experiencing death through our beloved ones and people near us, maybe some of us, maybe you have a near-death experience, but waking up in the morning and going to a cold shower is a way of exploring death, right? I think is shocking enough that it's like the day that we die, we don't know how is that going to be. But if we train ourselves to wake up in the morning, go into the cold shower and do it consciously, like I'm going to go into that, and you take the cold shower, you choose to go there awake, so that someday when we have to depart this earth, we can do that departing consciously as well. So it's a training. Everything we do in yoga is a training. When we are finishing an exercise and we contract mulban, sphincter, perineum, sexual organs, we contract the lower region, and the navel point goes in, and then all the energy goes up to the crown. This is a training for when we have to die. Infinity, you were asking about this. Where does the energy of the body live when we die? It has to go through the crown. So when we are meditating and we are doing all this contraction, we are training ourselves so that we know the path towards death the moment that we have to die. Waheguru. So this was an example. Let's say cold shower, and it's you start with your commitment, and you can say something like, okay, I'm going to commit to it, let's say 40 days. And then if one day you cannot do it and you miss, you have to start again. So when you do a commitment, we say, no, I'm going to commit to 40 days and I cannot break it. And this commitment builds like a courage in you and a grit, a strength that is going to help you endure many other things in life. I tell you, you take a cold shower in the morning, you can be in the middle of a traffic accident or something shocking may happen, and you will be steady. And you will respond with consciousness rather than react and create karma. Something is happening, somebody gets on your nerves, they got in front of you and they're trying to get on your nerves, they are screaming at you, and you just be cold, right? Cold enough to hold the position and choose at that moment, what do I want to do? What do I want to say? If I have to say something, can I do it consciously? So that's the mental attitude you get. The mental attitude one is at the moment of death plays a huge role at the next destination. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah, there's some deaths which are quite beautiful. I don't know how it was for John with his father, but I found when my father died, when he passed away, now it's been 17 years ago, we already knew yoga, fortunately, so we had a very beautiful departure in some way. Maybe someday I will share a little bit more about that. But it can be a healing experience for the family when you do this in the right way. And yeah, what can I say? I'm grateful for that. Yeah. Tibetan rice every day for 4 years. Yes. Wonderful. So we choose a commitment and we stick to it, right? Maybe 4 years, right? Every day we stop. We have lost the commitment, so we have to start again. By the way, if anybody, I was just giving the example of the cold showers, but if any lady is listening to this and you want to do the cold showers, you would not do cold showers during menstruation or pregnant. So I'll just want to say that just as a prevention. Nobody take my idea and then you just go through with that if you are during those days. So you start with something like that, and that can be the trigger to a lot of changes. So by me saying, I'm going to do the cold shower every morning, that's also taking the reins of my life in many other things. So it's not just about the cold shower itself. That's like a symbol for us deciding to step out of hell. So it was a celebration of his life. I see. Yes, indeed, it's a celebration. It's good when we can give thanks for somebody being with us on the day that they are departing, indeed. Well, where does commitment lead to? Let me write down the others. As I said, this is the only thing we have to do, but we have to do it every day. This is like, you commit to take a shower, you have to take a cold shower every day. It's not just once and that's it. You have to hold the commitment, not just do it once. If you commit to somebody, you get married, for example, you have to get married every day, right? You only do one wedding, but you have to get married every day in a way to hold the commitment. Commitment gives you character. It builds the character. This is like the character building exercises that sometimes we talk about, or you may have heard about. This is the things that develops in the hero of the movie. As they are committing to something, maybe find their magic, or maybe look for treasure, or maybe reach some higher goal. By holding that commitment, the character is being developed. It's not part-time. No. Yeah, exactly. When you commit, you have to hold it every day. It's just like marriage. It's not a part-time thing, yeah? Being a father, having children is not a part-time thing. You have to be committed to being the best dad that you can be every day, right? But if you can hold a commitment, that develops your character. And I like to explore some concepts with an image of a person. I will do this with Gandhi. Okay, I will take Gandhi as an example. He's a very high example. So he committed very, very strongly to the cause, to peace in India. And you could tell that Gandhi's character was pretty strong. I mean, when you think about him as a public figure, the way he would be seen and the way he would behave and the things that he would do, that's a pretty strong character. Somebody who is able to say, I'm not eating, and hold fast. That's incredible character. So, and watch, I'm not saying personality. I'm not saying a strong personality. I'm saying a strong character, which is interesting because the word character resonates with kar, like ekon kar, yeah? Infinity says, can we say that the steps to hell are more of a feminine and conscious energy and to heaven a masculine conscious? I wouldn't say that, because when we were exploring the levels of consciousness, subconscious is feminine, let's say, we had to give it a polarity. Semi-conscious is masculine, conscious is feminine, unconscious is masculine. So I would associate feminine to the subconscious, not the unconscious. And second, masculine, I would associate it more to the semi-conscious. If anything, I mean, we all have both feminine and masculine energy within. So we are not talking about men and women anyway. However, just the very fact that you can make a choice, and remember, commitment has to be a choice, a conscious choice. This is conscious, okay? I didn't put it here, but it has to be a conscious choice. The consciousness is associated to the heart, because that's where the lungs are. The lungs are breathing, and we can breathe consciously. So the heart is the chakra that is more associated to a feminine energy. So if anything, the beginning of these 7 steps to heaven would be a feminine quality, with the consciousness. Now, character could be more masculine, right? But the initial thing would be more feminine. I wonder if it holds on to the next ones with the masculine and feminine energies, but it feels kind of like that. Because in yogic POV is point of view. Okay, in yogic point of view, Ida or lunar is associated with mind and unconscious, and Pingala with solar, conscious, and soul. Well, I don't know very much about that kind of association. I agree that Ida would be left and Pingala would be right. Ida is lunar, Pingala is solar. So now, with that I agree. Now, Ida being unconscious and Pingala being conscious, I wouldn't necessarily do that association. I would say that let's say the objective of yoga is to reach super conscious state, which is beyond the polarity. That's Sushumna, right? Not Ida nor Pingala, that's Sushumna. So that requires the neutrality and going through the central channel. But left and right, I wouldn't associate it to unconscious and conscious. I don't know where you got it from, but that's not an association that I would do naturally. We could argue that, but then we will have to talk about levels of consciousness. I don't know, did you watch Infinity, the video I have on levels of consciousness on the course of the mind? Because in that one I gave 5 levels: unconscious, subconscious, semi-conscious, conscious, superconscious. And so this is earth, water, fire, air, ether, like the 5 chakras. And if you look at it like that, this is numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The numbers 1 and 3, earth and fire, would be male, and 2 and 4 would be feminine. So would be female or feminine. So that I could link it more like that. And then superconscious is beyond the polarity of male and feminine. So where were we? Commitment gives you character. Yeah, it's a strong character, it's developed. And car is also creative, yeah? Car, remember. Now, when we were doing this illusion of knowledge, you may remember we were saying, in passive expectancy, it's like we are waiting for the world to entertain us in some way. And with the energy that we don't invest in the world, then we think we know better, and we say, well, I'm going to create my own destiny. Well, this is where we decide that we are going to create something. So this is the step of creation. Only here, that kar, which means create, would be in a way saying, well, I'm going to choose to align with the hukam, and I'm going to commit to that. Now, as soon as you commit to something, as soon as we commit to something, this is in numbers, this would be number 4. The consequence, in numbers, this would be number 6. Now there is a responsibility. There's a responsibility. So now that I've committed, now I'm responsible for that. This is like, if you get married, now there is a responsibility of the commitment that you did. So let's say you commit to do some changes in your life. Let's say you choose one of these mind games and you commit to changing it and say, I'm not going to play it anymore. Let's say, for example, anytime I detect I don't deserve in my mind, I'm going to stop it. And I'm not going to entertain that kind of thought. Now, if you choose to do that commitment to rid yourself of questions on deserving, whether you deserve something or not, or let's say guilt, you want to get rid of guilt, let's say you make that commitment. From now on, anytime I feel the slightest shadow of guilt, I'm just not going to do whatever I'm doing. If I do something out of guilt, that's going to be karmic, so I'm not going to do it. And if that, even a thought, I'm not going to allow any thought that comes out of a feeling of guilt. And you have to carry it right there as it's coming up into the thoughts. So once you have committed to that, now you have the responsibility. Now, if you are holding to that responsibility, that's going to develop your character. This is, again, the character, like the main character of the story. This is the beginning of the hero. Remember, commitment gives you character. The character gives you dignity. Character gives you dignity. Now, when I think about Gandhi, and I remember a number of times when he ended up in prison, and I can imagine he must have been in all sorts of nasty prisons back then, in, I don't know, I think it was even 1908, 1909, when he started protesting in South Africa. I can imagine an incredibly dirty prison, almost no food. They throw the food on the ground. You have basically your clothes are dirty, or you have no clothes. Like Gandhi, he would dress in the most humble ways later on. He could be dressed with just the one cloth, sitting on the ground. They could even insult him and say whatever they wanted, and he would not lose his dignity. You know what I mean? No matter what they would do to him, they could not humiliate him. They could not remove his dignity, because the dignity came with his soul. You may remember when, I think it was last video, I talked about dignity, how pride is the ego mind substitute to the dignity of the soul. And shame is the ego mind substitute to the humility of the soul. So by aligning yourself to the destiny of your soul, by choosing to find this path and saying, look, there is something higher that I can be. I can be an acorn tree, an oak tree, sorry. The acorn is the seed. I can be an oak tree. I'm going to align myself. I'm going to commit to doing that. And now I'm going to hold to that commitment. I'm going to take responsibility. That's going to build my character. And there's going to be a dignity in just being aligned to that and holding on every day to that. So that's the dignity that is evolving, is being developed as the holding of the commitment slowly. Yeah. So this is like going down like that, is being accumulated. Infinity says, I watched your video, so Sushumna must be the C2, consciously conscious. You mentioned there being unconsciously conscious, so like the sum of both. Not unconsciously conscious, is consciously conscious, without the un. So yeah, it's like the sum. Yeah. So the Sushumna is the middle path, is the consciously conscious. I think, when Buddha talks about the middle path, he's being very cheeky, because that can be many things, but one of them is not Ida nor Pingala, not male nor female, is the middle path. So is the Sushumna in some way. All right. So, dignity. I'm going to start going a bit faster because it's getting long, the video, and I don't want it to be too long. But I commit, I hold the commitment, the character develops. Through the character, dignity starts to build up. And dignity brings forth your divinity. We remember we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Oh, remember this, there's a dignity of the soul, yeah? The ego substitute is pride. Now, because we are going away from the pride and the shame, and you will remember this, we are getting away from this pride, which was also kind of, involved in different levels. As we are going away from that, through this path, we can find the dignity of the soul. And then the ego does have no power, because the ego may try to hook us into doing whatever it wants us to do through pride. Now, when you are in contact with the dignity of your soul, this has no power over you. Now, divinity, we are all spiritual beings having a human experience. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. That's a very famous phrase. So by establishing the commitment, holding on to it, the character develops, and here the dignity starts to grow, and then you come in contact with the divinity both within and without. So both inside of you, like the spiritual being having a human experience, and also the divine around us and the divine in the experiences that we are going through. So we are in contact with the divine. That's a beautiful moment. Remember, before, this is the investment stage of the 7 steps to hell, yeah? So this is investing into the games that the ego was creating. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention that, but yeah, in dignity, the ego has no power over you through the pride. So it cannot control us. So now we are going beyond the control through the dignity, and instead of investing into a game that we create, yeah, how is that? Gurumukh and Manmukh, yeah, the word created by the man or the words created by the guru. Instead of investing into a man-created game, yeah, a game created by the man, we are investing into divinity, into aligning ourselves with these divine lines which are in harmony with the universe, and finding the divinity also within. And so by aligning ourselves with the inner divinity, it opens the door for grace to come. Which grace maybe or may not be granted. This is not something we can force. I mean, as soon as you are in the dignity of the soul, you're not trying to force grace, of course, but this is, as you are becoming in contact with the inner divinity, the grace comes from the outside, and it may grace you. So it's not about good karma coming to you. It's not about that. It's about the grace descending, is kind of doors which were hidden and closed open up, and new possibilities for you to grow as the oak tree that you are developing, they open up. So that's the grace that would rise from that. And, again, coming back to Gandhi, I could see, the more dignified he would be, even in jail, and there would be this touch of divinity when he would speak, and there would be all this grace and light coming into his life. And a simple man, very small man, very just holding to the purity of his commitment, and then all this grace making him shine like a thunderbolt in a moment when India really needed that. So he becomes the leader of India, the father of India. So this is granted when it's the right time. We cannot force it, but if it comes, this is how it comes. And yes, let's align it with the 7 steps to hell. You see, this was the step when karma, drama, trauma, this is the result of playing the game. So the result of holding on to your character, dignity, divinity, right? Holding on to all this, the result may be some sort of grace that may come. It graces you. Now, through grace, comes the power to sacrifice. Power to sacrifice, that's one that sometimes people have challenge to relate to. But the grace, when you are given this grace, is like a strength, like an inner, like a spiritual strength that comes in. And you are able to overcome challenges and obstacles, and you find the strength to cross through. And in that crossing through, it's like a battle. Often something has to die. Now, one of the things that dies definitely is some of the games of the ego. But sometimes this also something else. It's like I don't know, I was a bit reluctant to say it, but let's say, as you start on the spiritual path, you may have noticed that some friends go away. And that can be a painful sacrifice to have, because you love them and you like them, and we are grateful for what we had, and any loss is always has a process. But somehow those were friends of the past, and they were friends of me when I was attached to my ego in that particular way. So the moment that one chooses to give less power to that ego part of us, that confronts a lot of people, and a lot of people, they are not going to want to be with you, because you see, if you are doing your mind games, that kind of gives them justification for them to play their own. Right? Me playing my mind games justifies you playing your mind games. So please, no, don't remove your mind games, because that is going to confront me with my responsibility to myself. So when we choose to change this and we commit to do something else, that often manifests as a sacrifice in terms of, for example, people in our lives who just doesn't like us anymore. And they will say it like that. They will say, you've changed and you're Wahiru. But then they may go away. And so that's one kind of sacrifice. There are other kinds of sacrifices. If you want to know more about sacrifice, I talked about it when we were on the Mool Mantra course. Check episode or chapter number 5, when we were talking about Karta Purak and Karata, and I was using the C and the R like sacred, Purak, so Kar is action, so Kar is action and sacred action. So Karta, connecting it with the S of Kundalini, it would be sacred. So I don't know, you have to watch that video. I'm explaining it very badly now. I would have to draw it and explain it. But this basically, I was saying how in Karta Purak we are congruent how we are inside and the actions that we are doing outside. And for that congruence to happen, there has to be certain kind of sacrifice. And the word sacrifice means sacred office or sacred officere. I think sacred facere, which is like action, something that I have done. So it's a sacred action. So if you are committing to yourself, and that's developing the character, dignity starts, that brings the divinity. Divinity may bring the grace. Out of the grace comes the power to do the sacred action. So this is the sacred action. And through the sacrifice comes the happiness. And this is true spiritual happiness. It's kind of linked to when we talk about the objective of the objective of yoga is to realize ourselves and to realize who we are. Self-realization means who is the self. And when we explore who is the self is Chat Chitananda. Sat being truth. Chit being consciousness, and we are doing a path of consciousness, let's not forget that, right? And Ananda is the joy, is the blessing, is the happiness, is the ecstasy even. So this is leading to Sat, Chit, Ananda. Happiness, not pleasure. Remember on the 7 steps to hell that it all started kind of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. In the 7 steps to heaven, you can be in pain and being happy. Thank you, John. You have to go. Satnam. It's good to see you. We are back to end anyway, but thank you for having joined us and contributing as well. And yes, all the best to you and your family, and may you find a loving heart to relate to your Father wherever He is. Hopefully He is in the highest of ethers. Satnam, John, take care. So we can be in pain and we can find happiness. And we talked about the different, I think at the beginning of today's conversation, we were talking about it's a matter of perspective. It's no perspective. How is that? The attitude, the mental attitude. Yeah, Infinity was talking about the mental attitude. One plays a huge role. Yeah, so it's about the mental attitude that we can have. And let's remember that attitude, it's always attitude of gratitude. So, yes, when you get to here, you can give thanks, gratitude. I may have put an extra T there. Okay, never mind. Gratitude. That's all for me today. I think the path is complete. We've reached the happiness. I hope it's clear. This is the way to get out of jail. And it all starts with commitment. Maybe you don't know exactly what you have to commit to. When you don't see clearly the path of your purpose, when you don't see the destiny so clear, and you have the boat, you don't know where to take it, you can start with little things. Like I just mentioned, cold shower in the morning, or whatever you want to commit to. Maybe inform yourself more about diet and start a vegetarian diet. Or maybe commit to doing 10 minutes or 11 minutes of meditation every day. Perception? We were talking about perception, yeah. So by establishing a commitment and holding it, that's going to change the perception. And that's going to start changing the way we see the world. We don't live the world as karmic and fate, but we can start taking the reins of it and moving towards our destiny. So that's wonderful possibilities. So yes, that's what is ahead of us. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you everyone watching. Thank you everyone who is supporting the channel, especially who are members. And some of you are here in the chat, like John and Infinite Stories. If anybody wants to know more about memberships, it's just a way to give something back. If you enjoy these kind of videos that I'm doing and, these courses that I put together, and you want to offer some contribution, you can become a member of the channel. And I think you can just click on the link below the video where the title of the channel is, and you can do so if you want. But let me just say last messages. I don't know what I still see them as feminine and masculine qualities for each. And by the way, solar for conscious is because we're awake when sun is up and sleep when moon is up. In a way, yes, but sometimes we are also daydreaming when the sun is up. So, but yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, about awake and asleep. I can see a connection in that. That kind of makes sense. I see where you are going. Yeah, it's just that there are so many levels of consciousness that to say I'm conscious and conscious, that could be a little bit mixing it up. But I agree with the concept that the moon is when we are asleep and the sun is when we are awake. It's just I don't want to go into feminine energy is to be asleep. Masculine energy is to be awake, like we are the good ones, right? I just don't want people to misunderstand this, because many people jump into conclusions for the wrong reasons, which this is not the way you were saying it, not at all. But some people would be very quick to do that kind of jump. So I wanted to just make it. But thank you very much. Thank you all for being here and for commenting and writing in the chat. I enjoy when we have an interaction. It helps me to develop the topic. It's not just me with my thoughts, but it's here with you. So I appreciate every message. And until next time, Sadam.